Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something I know a lot of you are very interested in, the All Blacks. Specifically, um, their performance this year in 2024 and what might be ahead for them. And to help us with this, we're going to be looking at an article by All Blacks legend Justin Marshall. And he definitely doesn't hold back.
Oh, yeah, he's got some thoughts.
So, did the All Blacks get a passing grade in 2024? Let's find out.
Well, one of the things I found really interesting is that Justin Marshall just comes straight out and gives him a rating for the year. And it's a generous 7 out of 10. Not exactly glowing, is it?
7 out of 10. Yeah, that's pretty rough,
Yeah.
especially coming from someone like Marshall, who, knows what it takes to succeed at the highest level.
Yeah, exactly. And it's even more striking when you think about, this is Scott Robertson's first year coaching. After all those successes with the Crusaders, there were really high hopes he'd bring that same, winning formula to the national team. But it seems like it hasn't been quite as smooth as people thought it might be.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a bumpy year, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
losing assistant coach Leon McDonald mid-season amidst that controversy, definitely shook things up a bit. And then there was the inconsistent form throughout the year, culminating in 4 losses out of 14 tests, including another defeat to Argentina. Ouch.
Yeah, not the dominant All Blacks that we're used to seeing.
No.
And this leads to a really fascinating point that Marshall brings up, this whole idea of legacy. He basically says that, there's this inherent expectation for the All Blacks to win every single match, to maintain that aura of invincibility they've built over a century. He even says, quote, "We want to make sure we preserve what we've done over 100 years."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big statement. Imagine the pressure that puts on the players every time they step onto the field. They're not just playing for themselves. They're carrying the hopes and expectations of an entire nation on their shoulders.
Absolutely. And he goes on to argue that these losses,
Yeah.
even though they might be more acceptable in the modern rugby landscape, they still take a toll. He talks about that mental and emotional impact, the lingering sting of defeat.
So is it fair to hold them to such a high standard? Are we as fans placing an undue burden on them by expecting them to be invincible?
It's a valid question. On the one hand, those high expectations have undoubtedly pushed the All Blacks to achieve some incredible things. But on the other hand, is it sustainable in today's rugby world, where the competition is so much fiercer than it ever was?
Well, it's interesting because Marshall himself seems to acknowledge that shift in the rugby landscape. He points out that New Zealanders are perhaps a bit too comfortable with the All Blacks losing these days. That there's a sense of moving on quicker than in the past.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't mince his words. It's
Yeah.
like he's suggesting there's this softening in the national psyche,
Yeah.
the growing acceptance of defeat. That could potentially erode that, unacceptable to lose mentality.
Mhm.
That has been such a hallmark of the All Blacks for so long.
And that brings us to this really crucial question. If that mentality is indeed fading, how can the All Blacks reclaim it? How can they regain that edge, that hunger to dominate, that once made them the most feared team in the world?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Marshall seems to believe that the upcoming series against the Springboks in 2025 will be the defining moment. He sees it as a litmus test, an opportunity for the All Blacks to prove that they've learned from the setbacks of 2024 and that they're ready to reassert their dominance.
Yeah. Those matches against the reigning world champions are going to be massive. But before we delve into the specifics of that challenge, I think it's important to unpack what Marshall means by this, ruthless edge. What does it actually look like on the field?
What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
What are the tangible elements of this ruthlessness that Marshall believes they need to rediscover? Well, when I think about, a ruthless edge in rugby, it's not necessarily about dirty play or brute force. It's more about this unwavering intensity, this relentless pursuit of every inch on the field.
So it's more mental toughness than physical intimidation.
Exactly. It's about never letting up, never giving the opposition a moment to breathe. It's like this suffocating pressure that gradually wears the opponent down, forcing errors and ultimately breaking their spirit.
He uses this great analogy of like a relentless wave crashing down on you. You might be having a good moment, but that wave keeps coming, and eventually it just overwhelms you.
Yeah.
It's a really vivid image. That kind of captures what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's what made the All Blacks so formidable for so long.
Yeah.
They're masters of building pressure, both physically and mentally. They had this incredible ability to turn, seemingly small advantages into game-changing moments.
So is this ruthless edge something that's missing from the current team? Are they lacking that killer instinct that was once synonymous with the All Blacks?
It's not that they're completely devoid of it, but it's definitely not as consistently evident as it once was. There are glimpses of it, moments of brilliance, where they suffocate the opposition and impose their will on the game.
But those moments seem to be fleeting, not as sustained as they were in the past.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that inconsistency is part of the reason why we're seeing these uncharacteristic losses against
Hmm.
teams like Ireland, France, and especially the Springboks. You can't afford to let up for a moment.
Right, and this is where Marshall's point about the Springboks series becomes so relevant. Because if the All Blacks want to prove they still have that ruthless edge, they need to bring it against the reigning world
Oh,
champions.
absolutely. There's no better test than that. The Springboks are renowned for their physicality,
Yeah.
their tactical discipline, and their own brand of ruthlessness.
So what are some specific areas where the All Blacks need to improve if they're going to match the Springboks' intensity? Marshall mentions that the players need to earn it again, to rediscover that hunger to win, but how do they actually do that?
Hmm, that's a complex question. And there's no easy answer. But I think part of it comes down to leadership. The senior players, the experienced campaigners, they need to step up and set the tone. They need to embody that unacceptable to lose mentality, not just in words, but in actions.
So, leading by example, demonstrating that relentless drive in every training session, every game.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just about individual effort either. It's about fostering a team culture where that hunger to win, that relentless pursuit of excellence, becomes ingrained in the very fabric of the team.
And this is where Marshall's call to, find that within ourselves really resonates. It's about tapping into that inner drive, that primal desire to be the best, and channeling it into a collective force.
It's about rediscovering that warrior spirit. That has always been at the heart of the All Blacks' legacy. It's about embracing the challenge, the pressure, the weight of expectation, and using it as fuel to push themselves further, to reach new heights.
It's about refusing to be complacent, to accept mediocrity. It's about striving for greatness in every aspect of the game, both individually and as a team.
Now, this is where I think it gets really interesting, because this quest for ruthlessness, this relentless pursuit of excellence, it's not just confined to the rugby field. It's something that resonates far beyond the world of sport.
You're right. I mean, think about it. In any field, in any endeavor, those who truly excel, who achieve greatness, they all share that same fire, that same unwavering determination to be the best.
Whether you're an athlete, an artist, an entrepreneur, or just someone striving to be the best version of yourself. That inner drive is essential. It's what pushes you beyond your comfort zone, what helps you overcome obstacles, and what ultimately leads to fulfillment and success.
And that's what makes Marshall's message so powerful. It's not just about rugby. It's about tapping into that universal human desire to strive, to achieve, to leave your mark on the world. And I think that's something that all of us, regardless of our background or aspirations, can connect with.
Absolutely. It's about finding that spark within yourself, that passion, that drive that propels you forward, that makes you hungry for more, that compels you to keep pushing, keep striving, keep reaching for greatness.
So as we reflect on Marshall's insights, I want to pose a question to you, our listener. What are you ruthlessly pursuing in your own life? What are those goals, those dreams, those aspirations that ignite that fire within you?
Take a moment to consider those things that truly motivate you, those pursuits that make you feel alive, that challenge you to grow, that push you to be the best version of yourself, because that's where the magic happens. That's where true fulfillment lies.
And remember, it's not just about achieving the goal, it's about the journey, the struggle, the relentless pursuit that shapes you, that molds you, that ultimately defines who you are.
It's about embracing the challenge, the adversity, the setbacks, and using them as stepping stones on your path to greatness.
Mhm.
Because as Marshall reminds us, true greatness lies not in the destination, but in the journey itself.
It's about finding that ruthless edge within yourself, that unwavering determination, that relentless pursuit of excellence that will propel you forward no matter what obstacles you face.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into the world of the All Blacks and the concept of ruthlessness, I want to circle back to something we touched upon earlier, the changing landscape of international rugby.
You're talking about the increased competition. The fact that the All Blacks are no longer the undisputed dominant force they once were.
Exactly. And I think this is a crucial point to consider as we assess their prospects for the future, especially in the context of this upcoming Springbok series.
So how does this new reality impact the All Blacks' approach? How do they need to adapt to this more competitive environment?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that both the players and the coaching staff need to be acutely aware of. The days of complacency, of expecting to win simply by showing up, are over. They need to be prepared for every battle, every challenge, every opponent.
Yeah, it's almost like they need to rediscover that underdog mentality, that hunger to prove themselves all over again.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's about embracing that challenge, you know?
Yeah.
The fact that every opponent is coming at them with everything they've got. They can't just rest on their laurels or rely on past glories.
Right. And speaking of challenges, let's talk about the Springboks specifically.
Right.
What makes them such a formidable opponent, even for a team like the All Blacks?
Well, first off, there's the physicality.
Mm.
You know, the Springboks are renowned for their sheer power and physical presence on the field. They're a team that relishes the forward battle, the collisions, the physical confrontations.
Yeah, they're not afraid to get down and dirty in the trenches.
Exactly. And that presents a unique challenge for the All Blacks, who have traditionally been known for their speed,
Mm.
agility, and expansive style of play.
Mhm.
Against the Springboks, they can't afford to be outmuscled or outworked in those physical exchanges.
So it's not just about matching the Springboks' physicality, but also about finding ways to neutralize it, to disrupt their game plan.
Absolutely. And that's where tactical discipline and strategic awareness come into play. The Springboks are a very well-coached team, with a clear game plan and a knack for executing it effectively. They're patient, they're disciplined, and they're ruthless in exploiting any weaknesses in the opposition.
It's almost like a chess match, where every move is calculated, every decision has consequences.
Exactly. And to outmaneuver the Springboks, the All Blacks need to be equally sharp tactically. They need to control the tempo, vary their attack, and be clinical in finishing their opportunities.
So it's a multifaceted challenge. They need to match the Springboks' physicality, outsmart them tactically, and rediscover that ruthless edge that has defined the All Blacks' legacy.
It's a tall order, no doubt, but I believe they have the talent,
Yeah.
the experience, and the potential to rise to the occasion.
Well, we'll certainly be watching with anticipation to see how they respond to this challenge. And I think this deep dive has provided some really valuable insights into the key areas they need to focus on if they want to reclaim their place at the top of the rugby world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From analyzing their performance in 2024 to unpacking Justin Marshall's concept of ruthlessness
Yeah.
and exploring the specific challenges posed by the Springboks. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it has. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. The All Blacks' quest to regain their dominance is a story that's still being written.
Oh, for sure.
It's a story of resilience, of
Ah.
adaptation, of rediscovering that inner fire that has always been their hallmark.
It's about embracing the unknown.
Yeah, and whether they ultimately succeed or not, the journey itself, the struggle, the pursuit of excellence is what truly matters. It's a reminder that greatness is not a destination, but a continuous process of striving, learning.
And evolving.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right.
So to all our listeners out there, keep watching, keep cheering, and keep believing in the power of human potential. Because in the world of sport, as in life, anything is possible when you combine talent, determination, and that unwavering belief in yourself.